On this episode of the show, we have a conversation about a virtual school here in East Baton Rouge Parish. What about this new arena that's coming to LSU? We'll have a conversation about that. And the Dean of the Senate joins us to talk about the legislature and his run for House District 6. Roll it, Kirk. So this week up in the podcast studio, beginning this episode with the Dean of the Louisiana Senate, State Senator Cleo Fields, former state representative, former member of the U.S. House of Representatives. Might be circling back on that, and we'll get to that in the next segment. I want to begin, first of all, Senator, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to begin with where we are right now. We're in the midst of a legislative session. The regular session's going on right now. How do you think things are going?
Well, I think they're going, it's the second week of the session. I think it's going fine. There are a lot of bills that have been filed this session of the legislature. There's a lot of talk about having a constitutional convention. And there's a lot of talk about rushing this session so that we can get into a constitutional convention. So it's a lot going on in a short period of time.
In your mind, what should Louisiana's priorities be right now? Because we have so many things happening. What should be the priority?
Obviously education. And when people hear me talk, they say, will you please stop talking about education? But we have to, because look, I think that's the root of all problems. If we can solve our educational nightmare or problem, we can solve a lot of other problems in our state, like crime, economic development. And I just think we got to invest in kids early. Early childhood education is the way to go. If a state wants to be successful, they have to invest in its children.
It's interesting to me because we've been talking about that for so long, and we've had session after session, and there's never, ever an addressing of it. And you're right. If you fix that issue, you create more employable, productive citizens across our state, which has an impact on quality of life, crime, all those things.
That's right.
Why is it so hard?
Well, last year we took, the year before last, we made kindergarten mandatory. Last year we put over $50 million in the early childhood education, additional $50 million. And so those were steps in the right direction. We got to get them from the womb, to 4 years, to 5 years old. When we give them that impact, that surge of formal learning, they do well in life. And when you look at our penal institutions, the people who are in penal institutions for the most part are not high school graduates. They're dropouts. Right. And so we got to get kids in the early childhood education.
Well, you know this, Senator. People use the data that reflects a child's reading level at third grade to determine whether or not we need more prisons.
That's right.
And the logic is, and I said this to somebody just yesterday, the logic is, well, why don't we invest so that fewer kids are below reading level right now? I think it's a less expensive investment to do that than it is to handle them on the other end when they're disruptive.
When we don't invest on the front side of life, we spend millions upon millions of dollars on the back side of life. So we're going to spend the money. The question is when we spend it. Right. And unfortunately, the attitude in this country is let's spend it on the backside. Right. And let's hold up on the front side. Right. We got to invest early in our children.
1,000%.
When we do, they are less likely to commit crimes. People say, just say no. Back in the day, that was a big slogan that says, just say no to drugs. We have to give kids something to say yes to early. Give them something to say yes to early on in life. And they have less of a chance in being a child. The Bible says, bring up a child a certain way. And that's what we need to do in our state. We need to bring them up a certain way.
There's so many people talking about crime and so many discussions about how bad it is. But I don't think they understand it is bad.
It is real bad.
But what you just talked about, that investment has an impact on crime.
No question about it. No question. See, because kids are not born criminals.
Right.
Let's be clear.
Right.
Babies are babies, and it's how we develop them is how they end up turning out. So at the end of the day, nobody wants to be a part of something that they're not good at.
Right.
So when they get to the 3rd grade and they can't read, they don't want to go to school anymore.
Right.
They're depressed. So
Right.
they want to be a menace to the school.
Right.
I don't want to do that. And we gotta start early. From the time they're born, we gotta put them in that formal educational setting, and we gotta just help them and help them.
We're going to come back and have another segment with Senator Fields and talk about his speech at the press club in just a moment. Stay right there.
It's the best of both worlds. Baton Rouge's best selection of premium cigars and an unparalleled cigar lounge experience. Located in Town Center, it's Don Juan Cigar Company and Don Juan Cigar Bar. Walk into our amazing humidor at Don Juan Cigar Company, then walk next door and experience the plush atmosphere of Don Juan Cigar Bar. Come see why we are Baton Rouge's cigar and good time authority. Don Juan Cigar Company and Don Juan Cigar Bar.
Back with State Senator Cleo Fields, who spoke at the press club earlier this week, and it was fascinating to hear you talk. You're always a great speaker anyway, but what people came to hear you talk about was your run for the U.S. House, which you have announced your candidacy. First of all, why do you want to go back to Washington?
Well, why not? I want to go back because I want to finish what I started. Mm-hmm. We started some great things as a member of Congress. 27, well, we stopped 27 years ago. We started 30 years ago. And, it's a time to go to Congress and get some things done. There's too much partisanship. When I was there, 30 years ago, we didn't have as much. Obviously, there was a Democratic side, a Republican side. But at the end of the debate, they got to know each other.
Right.
They went, they sat down, they had dinner, they talked
That's
to
all
each
gone
other.
now, man.
And that's not happening at all anymore. And I just think that, we cannot move forward unless we build coalitions in the country. And quite frankly, that's one of the reasons why I want to go back to Congress. It's a challenging time.
Yeah.
It's not an easy time.
No, it's overly divisive right now. Congressman Graves said that he feels he was targeted. And he made those comments actually on the show a couple of weeks ago. Because he backed Wags, Stephen Waguespack, for governor. He feels like Governor Landry is retaliating against him because of that, and that you're the recipient or the beneficiary of this action. What's your response? You did respond to that at press club, but for people who didn't see it, what about that?
If you want to view me as a beneficiary, I'm a beneficiary of the 1965 Voting Rights Act, not some political squabble. Look, I understand how Representative Graves feel. He's in the same situation I was in 27 years ago. I'd served in Congress, and then 2 years later, they changed the district, and then 2 years later, they did away with the district. So I served 4 years, and the state legislature decided that, hey, we are not going to have this minority district. Look, I feel his pain. I remember like it was yesterday when the legislature voted not to have the second minority black district, and I remember talking to my mentor at the time, General Colin Powell. Yeah. And Colin Powell told me to go home and and don't stay here in Washington. Just go home and make a living. But at the end of the day, look, the courts have decided that Louisiana has gone long enough without giving an African American an opportunity to elect the candidate of their choice.
Well, and so people understand the population of the state is a third African American, so the representation in Congress should reflect the reality in the population. That isn't politics. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes facts get caught up in debate, in arguments, right?
Look, at the end of the day, Louisiana elected its first African American to Congress in 1868. John Willis Menard, first person ever elected, first black person ever elected to Congress in the history of Louisiana. And when he went to take his seat, James Garfield took the floor and said it was too early for a Negro to be seated in this body, and they sent him back. So we never had representation, although we elected an African American to Congress. And then Charles Nash, and then Louisiana went 114 years. And since Reconstruction, there's been only 4 African Americans to ever serve in the state of to represent the state of Louisiana in Congress. And we
you being one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look, man, at the end of the day, I understand his pain. But at the end, this has to be fair. You know, we cannot send a part of the population to Washington to represent the state. You know, the whole state should be represented in Washington, D.C. But I understand his pain. Look, I've been through that, been there, done that. It's a tough time, you know, to have your seat, the seat that you represent, taken. But at the end of the day, you know, African Americans in this state should have something to do with who they send to Congress.
What would be, and I got a minute left. What would be your priority? You talked about getting things done. Now, give me a couple of things that you would do if elected back in Washington.
Like education. I mean, we need to invest in early childhood education. That's the pillar of the country. Secondly, some people disagree with me, but I think we need to raise the minimum wage. You know, I think people work too hard, and at the end of the day, they're still poor. And I think that's one of the ways we take people, you know, off of the welfare rolls, pay them for the work they do. Yeah. You know, we got to work on environmental issues. You know, it's a host of issues we have to work on as a member of Congress, and I'm looking forward to doing that. I see you.
Yeah, Tom. So quickly, let me ask you this. I would like, in a couple weeks before the session wraps up and we get in the Constitutional Convention, I want to talk about what a Constitutional Convention means. Will you come back?
Yes, I will. Right. I'll be happy to.
All right, State Senator Cleo Fields back in just a moment. You got
to promise me that he's not going to be doing that.
All right. All right, Chuck. So back with Jill Kidder, the CEO of Visit Baton Rouge. So for people who don't know what Visit does, give me the elevator. What is Visit Baton Rouge?
Well, first, Clay, thank you so much for having us back. We really enjoy being with you at any point, whether it's on the show or not. But Visit Baton Rouge is truly an economic development organization, and what we focus on is bringing visitors here to spend their money and leave their tax dollars behind, so that it makes our entire community better because of it. And we really do focus on the quality of life assets in the region.
The purpose of our conversation today is about the new arena that's coming to LSU, and let's begin by talking about what it is.
Yeah, and I'd really like to add the kind of the reimagining of the River Center as well into that conversation.
That's right.
If we can. And the Arena Project certainly is a huge opportunity. I call it a game changer, generational kind of game changer for our community. And of course, with LSU in its height of,
golden era,
we need to focus in and really take advantage of that opportunity. And the Arena Project, as I understand it, and I'm not on the inside, but as I understand it from those folks from LSU, is that it is a new development that will house their games, that are currently at the PMAC. But it will also be an opportunity for us to bring in those big performances and acts that we've not had an opportunity to have before because we don't have a space big enough for it.
Yeah, there are college campuses all over America who have similar arenas, and they have concerts and different kinds of events on college campuses because, especially in the South, those college campuses are hubs for activity. Like in Baton Rouge, Tiger Stadium obviously is the biggest arena that you have here. Now we've got an indoor thing coming. But I'd like you to speak, well, before I get to the other thing, let's talk about the reimagining of the River Center, which I also think is long overdue.
And I want to also say that the Arena Project is going to be private development.
Right.
You know, so it's going to be a public-private partnership, which we need more of in this community.
Yeah.
And we're hoping that the concept of the River Center will also be a public-private partnership. And in the recent ordinance that was passed, the city council gave the mayor the authority to move forward with sort of that reimagining of the River Center, because we don't need two arenas that are competing with each other, and we need really good convention space, and hopefully a headquarter hotel that is attached to it that we can go out and sell, because we're not even getting on the competitive set of some of our larger conventions.
I was going to ask you about that hotel capacity right now. So this obviously will be a game changer. It's going to bring more people here. Where are we now in terms of rooms? How much growth do we need to keep pace with what could be happening with this?
Well, and honestly, that we are in the middle of finalizing a study right now. There are several organizations that have gone together and have looked at this. Okay, if we have the arena, if we have the convention center, we have downtown, what do we need to be doing overall? And how can those projects complement each other? And we'll have that pretty quickly here, and we'll know exactly what those sizes and changes need to be.
I don't understand the controversy behind this. It really doesn't make sense. Can you make heads or tails of it?
Well, you know, I'm sure people are concerned. Anytime that there's change or new development, you know, people get excited. But I think that we need to just step back. Let's do. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And so let's take some opportunity to really look at the research, what the research is telling us, and let's do it, because other cities are jumping over us. And if we want to compete, we have to we have to do some of these game-changing things.
If you want to be like Dallas and Atlanta and Nashville and Houston, we've got to do what they do. Quickly here, 30 seconds. How can people learn more about Visit Baton Rouge?
Go to our website. It's visitbatonrouge.com.
So we're going to be doing something in a few weeks to announce, to give further information on our partnership on the Paige Rice Initiative, which y'all have been such great partners on. And so we appreciate you coming by, Jill.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Back in just a moment. Oh, one of my favorite people is here in the podcast studio, Dr. Quintina Timmel with University View Academy, Dr. Q as we call her. So how are you?
I am well.
Why is it that we haven't seen each other in so long? The last two times have been like in front of a camera or a microphone, right?
Absolutely. It's been a long time, but it's always great to come back and talk to you.
Fantastic. Let's talk about University View Academy. It is a virtual charter school. You guys are killing it. So explain the model to people who've never heard of it.
Well, UVA, University View Academy, it is a K-12 online public school.
Yeah.
We are not a school that's for every child, but for the students who need us, the families who choose us, we are definitely their best choice. And so it's a public school. Teaching and learning happens in our students' home. And our teachers are certified. Our teachers teach everything that they taught in a brick and mortar school. We just do it, you know, in a virtual environment. So it gives our students that flexibility, a little bit more personalization than they probably experience in that brick and mortar. Many families choose us because they've had students with high anxiety. Our student diversity is very large because many of our families, they want to be really engaged in the learning process of their students. And so everything that you get in a brick and mortar, you get at our school. How do you manage the efficacy of the process? Like, how do you ensure the child is actually learning and they're getting something? Because K-12, I mean, it's big lift. How do you manage that? Well, we provide asynchronous and synchronous learning opportunities. And so our students, so asynchronous, they get a set of assignments and courses that's prescribed for them based on standards, based on the content. We use Tier 1 curriculum. And so our teachers spend a lot of time designing the lessons that our students will engage with daily. every student has the opportunity to attend what we call live sessions. That's our synchronous model.
Okay.
And so many of our synchronous classes last anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes, depending on the grade level, also taking into account attention span of students. But we do not make those courses mandatory. So they do not have to show up for live sessions, but we record all of them.
Right.
So that if students need to go back and refer to something that happened in live session, they have an opportunity to do so.
Yeah. How do you manage that with, testing, the testing period's about to come up here, and preparation, which is another thing, because I'm so fascinated by this model. What's your preparation process for kids when it comes to exams, not just on the big scale, but just overall as they learn?
So a lot of our content, again, is aligned to our standards.
Okay.
And so we do benchmarking for our students. We make sure that they are up to par with what they should be learning and when they should be learning it. Of course, with having our parents as learning coaches, if you sign up to go to UVA, you as a parent must be a learning coach. So you are the teacher that's present every day in that classroom with your child, but you also have access to our teachers. And so preparation looks very much similar to how it would look in a brick and mortar, with the exception that for our high stakes test, our LEAP assessments, we of course have to rent locations across the state in order for our students to show up.
And so there it is. So they're in person when you're doing that.
Yes.
All right. Let me ask you, this model, since COVID, this is obviously more of a popular thing because kids weren't in schools and they had to be virtual. I got about a minute, Chuck is saying. Where do you see this model going in the future?
Oh gosh, it's expanding. Many parents are looking for the education that provides the same experience that they would get in a brick and mortar, but the personalization, the flexibility, the adaptability. Many of our students are competitive sports athletes, and this affords them the opportunity to seek out their dreams, whether it's in the arts or athletics, and still have a high quality education. So
it's so impressive, the model, and it doesn't surprise me that you're a part of this. So I was at under 30 seconds before Chuck yells at me. I was at the Young Entrepreneur Academy event on LSU's campus a couple weeks ago, and two of your students won. So shout out to them. If you want to learn more about University View Academy, go online. It's universityview.academy. Universityview.academy. Thank you for coming in, Doc.
Thank you.
See y'all next week.